that we don't see a lot of the other apps doing. Now, the first thing, I have a quick agenda here. We're going to take a look at kind of a data-based model of how the top 50 did in terms of the metrics that we've measured from our app store and things like that. It's a very Amazon thing to do, to measure everything and get a whole bunch of big data and then try to figure out what we can learn from the statistically significant data we get. When we get that, then we try to figure out why these patterns that we find exist. So we take a look at what they're doing differently. And then if I finish really quickly, we'll have some bonus content on when's a good time to put in-app purchase items on sale. So another quick question that has nothing to do with kids and physics. How many people actually have a mobile app or are considering a mobile app at the moment? A few of you. Why are the rest of you here? No, please stay. It'll be a good presentation, I promise. It'll be worth your time. But the focus of this is primarily on one corner of monetization. Now, it's on the corner of monetization that actually makes a pretty big difference. About 96% of all revenue for mobile apps comes from in-app purchasing. And therefore, it's really important to get in-app purchasing right. Amazon owns an app store. We've got a bunch of devices that work on our app store, including all of Android devices. We're in a bunch of countries, so that if Amazon can actually help make people more effective at making money, everybody wins. Not to mention that, but we can also help prevent customers from feeling like they're an ATM machine for the developer. Now, while you may not all have an app that you're building, I'm sure you've all used apps or games where every 5 minutes it's asking you to spend 99 cents. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, really, really annoying, isn't it? And at some point you just stop because you're not an ATM machine for the developer. That's not what the best apps do with in-app purchasing. As a matter of fact, that's what some of the worst apps do. And those apps ultimately don't end up making a lot of money because they're not respecting their customer and they're not offering a lot of value. It's pretty clear that the only thing those developers had in mind was making money for themselves. So in an effort to help all the rest of the developers in our store do better, we started off by measuring stuff, and that's, well, what Amazon does. A cohort analysis, if you don't know what a cohort analysis is, it's basically a fancy way of saying we measured a whole bunch of stuff over time, normalized it so that all of the data runs start on the same day, and we can take a look and compare two populations over a period of time. What two populations did we test? We tested apps in the Amazon App Store, the top 50 grossing apps with in-app purchasing, games, utilities, everything except gambling casino apps. And then we took a look at apps from the rest of us that were not the best, not the worst, but they were equivalent apps that the rest of us have written. And I owe you an explanation. When I say the rest of us, I apologize if you have an app that's in the top 50. None of my apps are in the top 50. So I say the rest of us because my apps are over here on this side of the chart. So I'll say the top 50 and the rest of us for that reason. We start with 100 installs. We took a look at 50 apps, 100 installs of each, 50 of the not top 50 apps and 100 installs of each. And this is how we're going to look at what I call retention data. So we start with 100 installs of the top 50 and of the rest of us. Of that, we notice the number of apps that actually get opened is just almost 60%, which means that there are a bunch of apps that actually never get opened and never get launched. Why do you think that is? Well, a lot of it could be because some of them are incentivized installs. Sometimes when you're playing a game, you'll see an ad and it says, get a whole bunch of gold coins, and all you have to do is install this app and it will give you the gold coins. So people go ahead, they click on yes, they get the gold coins, the app is installed. Well, they never really wanted the app to begin with, so they just never open it. And it makes sense if you've never actually opened the app that then you will uninstall it later. So the interesting thing here is, right now there's really no statistically significant difference between the top 50 apps and the rest of us. Okay, interesting. More important than active and uninstalled, how many people are actually paying on the first day? It turns out, again, there's no difference between the top 50 and the rest of us. In the survey we did, we found that about 3% of the downloads from the Amazon App Store actually became paying customers on day one. And so this is looking pretty even. But that doesn't really tell us how people are using the apps once they've opened them up and how they're paying for stuff. So we dug a little deeper, and we wanted to see how people are actually spending time in these applications. So over here on the left, we actually measure the number of minutes per session that a user will spend in the app. There's a decided advantage for the top 50. They're getting about 7.5 minutes per session. The rest of us are almost getting 7 minutes per session. The middle pie chart is the number of sessions per day that the apps are getting. Kind of even right now, but still a little of advantage for the top 50, almost 3 sessions a day as opposed to 2.5 sessions a day. And then if we go ahead and we do the math, what we figure out is the total number of session minutes per day. 22 for the top 50, 18 for the rest of us. As we look at this over several different days, keep an eye on this and just watch as this percentage gets a little bit larger over time, because that will actually make a difference in how these things monetize down the road. All right, so now we know how users are spending their time in these applications. How are they spending their money? Well, we decided to take a look at that, and instead of using absolute dollars, kind of like we used absolute minutes, absolute dollars was tough because some apps had a lot of really expensive items. Some apps only had a really few not very expensive items. And the price ranges were pretty wide, and there was really no good comparison of data we could do. So we decided to normalize this graph based on what the rest of us do. And by normalizing our income at 100%, we can take a look at how much better or worse the top 50 do and kind of use that as a delta over benchmark. So what we found is that the top 50 sell 12% more items than the rest of us do. Not only do they sell 12% more items, but they sell it for a 36% higher price. Cool. Now, let's do the math on that. And if you sell 12% more things at a 36% higher price, your average revenue per paying user is 54% more than the rest of us. They're making half again as much as we are on day one. Well, I suppose if I sold more stuff at a higher price in my game, I might be in the top 52. I'm working on that. So this is day one. What happens on day two? On day two, the numbers up here, the retention data numbers, those don't change a whole lot. And those are actually still statistically insignificant differences between the top 50 and the rest of us. We see over here that the top 50 are getting more session minutes. They're starting to get more sessions per day. So the math turns out that they're actually getting an increased share of time in the application. 27 minutes is actually pretty good. You'll notice that the number of items has gone from a 12% advantage to a 6% advantage, and the price they're getting is only 7% more. Now, this is not because the top 50 have done something wrong. Actually, it's because we've raised the 100% bar. We're actually doing something a little bit better on day two. We're selling deeper into our catalogs, and we're actually moving things a little bit higher than the 99-cent price point. So the delta between the top 50 and the rest of us is a little bit lower here. We're still looking at about a 14% difference in average revenue per paying user after you do the math. So it's still a significant difference in terms of total revenue. 3 days later, again, not much to talk about up here with retention data, 25 to 15 minutes. You can kind of see where this story is going. And the top 50 have actually discovered how to sell more expensive things out of their catalogs now on day 3. So they're starting to do better here. All right. A week is usually a pretty important measurement point. Most analytics packages out there for mobile apps spend a lot of time reporting on 7-day retention. So let's take a look at what 7-day retention looks like. Well, we're starting to see a little bit of a difference. That's now statistically significant in the measurement that we did. So the top 50 are retaining more users. They're retaining more users and getting a lot more screen time out of those users. They're only selling 2% more, which is kind of a low for them, but they're still getting a higher price out of it for a 24% advantage on day 7 on making money. What does 2 weeks later look like? Okay, now we're actually looking at a 40% difference in retention. 40% difference in retention, driving a 20% increase in average revenue per paying user. Let's take a look at a month later. A month later, it's absolutely disgusting. It's a 100% retention difference between the top 50 and the rest of us. Again, time is playing a big part in this number, a 31% difference in average revenue per paying user. Now, a lot of people who have gone to other conferences see a bunch of presentations about how steep the drop-off is in user retention after 7 days. Even our own data supports that, because you've got a lot of active users here, but a week later, you've got less than 20% of the total downloads you started with. Less than 20% are actually still active. And when you get down to a month later, you've got less than 10% of the total downloads are still active. So it's reasonable if you're asking the question, why do I care about anything after 7 days? Really, if I'm going to make money on my app, don't I have to make money in that first 7 days? Actually, no. And some of the reasons why are actually pretty interesting. Take a look at this in-app purchasing by hour. Obviously, in the first day, the first 24 hours, that's a really important first 24 hours for the apps in our survey. 18% of the money they're ever going to make from their app is going to come in the first 24 hours that someone owns it. That's a big deal. But take a look at 7 days later. This curve is staying pretty flat, and it doesn't stop here. It keeps going. I could make this very, very small, and while you'd see a big line there, this would just keep going for several more screens, out to 3 months and even beyond. So this actually turns into quite a bit of usage. Now, why is that important? That long tail is super important because people are willing to spend more money on in-app purchase items the longer they've had your app. So on day 1, if we put a benchmark at 100% on day 1, what we find that when a user is at day 30 in your app, they're willing to spend about 60% more money on each item at day 30 than they were on day 1. So stop a minute and think about that. That's big, but what are you doing in your app design that's actually going to take advantage of that and leverage that? What the top 50 are doing is they're recognizing that someone who's been in their app for 30 days wants to spend more money. So are they offering the same catalog items at day 30 that they're offering at day 1? Heck no. They're offering a lot more catalog items that are 60% more expensive. When you're doing your design for in-app purchasing, whether it's a fax utility or a game, make sure that you start offering some higher price in-app purchase items to your most loyal fans who've been in your game past that 7-day sheer drop. So this is kind of the base data, the kind of what they did from a metrics gathering standpoint. And it's not hard to draw a couple of pretty basic conclusions. The top 50 are selling more items for a higher price. All right. You don't really need me to come up here and tell you that if people buy more things from you at a higher price, you're going to do better, right? That goes without saying. It is interesting, though, to note that just the top data, the traditional retention data that everyone spends a lot of time talking about, isn't necessarily the only important data. How much time people are spending in your app and how many times a day they can come back turns out to make a pretty big difference in being able to get more purchases per day and being able to drive that higher price. So let's take a look at what they did differently in their apps in order to drive those results. So the first thing is, most of the apps in the top 50 understand some of these basic rules or basic mechanics of how in-app purchasing works. They know that they've got to give their customers a reason to come back to the app because 64% of the revenue they're going to make comes from someone who's purchased 3 or more things. Okay, so not only are your good customers important to keep track of, they're really 64% of your revenue critical to keep track of. And then what about that whole 7-day thing? You lose 80% of your users after 7 days. Yeah, you do, actually. But you know what? The top 50 don't care because they know they're going to make 74% of their revenue from that 20% that's left. Not only that, but they're going to make over half their revenue from the people who are left after 30 days. The people who think that you've just written the very best fax-sending software ever to hit a mobile phone. Or maybe, who here likes tower defense games? Oh, come on, more people than that. Okay, I'm a huge fan of tower defense games. I love these things. And if you've written tower defense, you know the one where Bloons Tower Defense 5 where the monkeys are throwing darts at the balloons? I love that game. I think that those guys at Ninja Kiwi are brilliant. I'm one of the guys at the 30-day end where I'm going to spend more money on that app if I can because I think they've written the best thing ever. And the people who show up here think that you've written the best app ever. Recognize that you're a genius to some of these people and show them and give them the opportunities to go ahead and buy things that you would buy from someone that you think is a genius. All right, easy. Another thing that, again, talking about the bottom half of that graph earlier with a pie chart, repeat purchases happen within an hour almost all the time. 48% of repeat purchases happen within an hour. Now, a lot of you are thinking, if an average session is 7.5 minutes, doesn't a repeat purchase happen within 7.5 minutes? No, actually. A repeat purchase is most likely to happen inside of an hour in a subsequent session, not the same session in which the first purchase was made. So if you have an app that's really hard to get into and pick up where you left off, you're really hurting yourself. Because if it's really hard to pick up right where I left off with the app that you've designed, you are kind of giving up some of that subsequent session data. That pie chart that we looked at in the middle, how many sessions you have per day, is driving a lot of this repeat purchase within an hour behavior. So pay attention to how easy it is to pick up where you left off. There have been a lot of studies and a lot of blog posts written in the industry about how you really have to be careful with users and not try to sell them anything on the first day. Our data doesn't really back that up. Our data says that a relatively small number, only 37% of people who will ever purchase anything do so on the first day, but you don't want to give up 37% of the people who are going to buy something. You want to pay attention to those 37%. What it also means is even if somebody doesn't buy something on the first day, they could still become an extraordinarily valuable customer for you when they recognize the value that you're offering. So make sure that you understand how that works. Certainly the top 50 do, which is why when you launch a game in the apps that we studied, most in-app tutorials show users how to buy in-app purchase items in the tutorial. Obviously this is a game and the dog is telling you how you can buy accessories for it. The utility that I'm thinking of, a fax machine utility, the tutorial tells you how to buy group faxes for fax sending and other advanced features for the utilities that they offer. There was an investment application and it showed you how you could buy a data stream or buy different chunks of data within app purchasing. So they taught you how to use that. In the study that we did, we found that apps that showed customers how to buy something in the in-app, in the tutorial, had a 2.5 times better conversion rate than apps that didn't teach people how to use in-app purchasing. If you're not planning to show users how to do in-app purchasing in your tutorial, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table that you should be getting. All right, so you show users how to buy stuff. It kind of makes sense that you'd show them how to use it, right? Okay, standing up here and kind of having a conversation about it, it makes sense to do it. But not everybody does it. And it's frightening that not everybody does it. Because if I bought something from you and then I don't know how to use it, what's the chance I'm ever going to buy another thing? Well, I've still got this one power-up and I don't know how to use it. So I can't figure out how to use it. Why would I ever buy another one? Please make sure you address that. And at the time of purchase is a really good time to do that too. I know a lot of you will cover that in your tutorials, but as soon as I've made an in-app purchase, show me immediately how I can use it. Because when you do that, you make a 65% higher reorder rate than if you don't show me how to use what I've just purchased. All right, so we show you how to buy stuff, we show you how to use stuff. We need stuff to buy, don't we? And when it comes to stuff to buy, have a big catalog. Have a lot of stuff. Now, again, we're taking a look at, we normalized at 6 to 10 items in the catalog. If you have fewer than that in your catalog, you'll actually only sell about 69%. You'll have 69% of the revenue that you will if you have 6 to 10. If you have 11 to 15, you'll actually have 45% more revenue per paying user than if you only have 6 to 10 items. Now, this is a dangerous graph to look at if you're just looking at the PowerPoint deck, because it's too easy to think, oh, I'll just show all of them at once. Nah, it doesn't work like that. That's not what the top 50 do. Because you guys have seen really horrible in-app purchase dialogues, right? The one where it's like 8-point font, it's impossible to read what's going on, there are no pictures, and half the items are below the fold. Yeah, that's a lousy in-app purchase dialogue, and they don't work. That's not what the top 50 are doing. The top 50 are actually showing only 6 to 8 items in any given online store, but they're pulling from a deeper catalog. Remember when we talked about users pay more at day 30 than they do at day 1? The top 50 have more items to show at a higher price on day 30 because they've got a deeper catalog. So they have a lot of higher priced stuff in their catalog. They just don't show it to users on day 1, and they kind of swap some of those things in on day 30. It's also nice because as a 30-day user, you're seeing things in the catalog change. It's not the same catalog every time you come back. Actually, it changes a little bit. And that kind of makes it interesting to take a look at the catalog. And if you saw something that's not there anymore, well, what if this thing you're kind of interested in goes away? Okay, I was on the fence. Maybe I'll go ahead and buy it now because I'm not sure if that's going to go away the next time I open this dialog box. So there's a little bit of some random scarcity involved, which can play a part. So variety is really good when it comes to items in your catalog. Unfortunately, variety is really, really bad when it comes to pricing items in your catalog. As a matter of fact, the more price points you have, the worse you typically do. And it's not because there's a really bad price point. I mean, $2.99 isn't some sort of an evil price point, and $5.99 isn't wrong for some reason. But think about it. If you can have a 99-cent item, a $1.99 item, $2.99, $3.99, $4.99, it makes sense to look at that and think, what am I getting for $4.99 that I'm not getting at $3.99? And, well, should I get the $5.99 or stick with $4.99? It kind of gets confusing discerning the value between so many very close price points. What we found when we were talking to customers is that confused customers are not going to buy the highest price thing that you're offering. As a matter of fact, consumers actually aren't going to buy the lowest price thing that you're offering. A confused customer doesn't buy anything that you're offering. So having too many price points isn't really about there being a bad price for something. It's about being exceptionally clear about the value differences between each of the price points of the items in your catalog. And the more crowded that field is, the harder it is to discern the value difference between each of those items. All right, so we've had stuff, we've shown them how to use it, we've gotten them to sell, we've got items like that. So here's an example of a good in-app purchase dialogue. It's not great, but it's far from terrible. It's not super crowded. It's a pretty good idea that all of these things that have the same color, those are going to be soft currency items in this particular catalog. I've got a couple things down here that I'm not really clear about what they are, but I can certainly tell that I can get a whole bunch of soft currency for $60 and less soft currency for 99 cents. All right. I'm in front of a room full of engineers. How many people have figured out the percentage difference between $60 and $1? You're working on it now, aren't you? I can tell. All right. Well, here's the thing. I'm talking to the most technically math proficient people who are ever going to see a dialogue like this, and not one of you raised your hand saying that you had already done the math when you saw this dialogue. Do you think your customers are going to have done the math when they first look at this? Why are you asking your customers to do the math when they first look at this? They don't. They're not going to. And they're going to keep buying the least expensive thing, and they're not going to get that they can actually purchase a whole bunch of stuff. And ultimately, that's really going to hurt your revenue because you're not crystal clear about value. I like this dialogue a lot more. One, because almost as obvious as the price is exactly the benefit you get for spending more. I know why I should spend $50 because I get a 100% bonus. Thank you for doing the math for me. I appreciate that. Also, whether or not you like tabs as a UI mechanism, what it does is it splits out buying bulk soft currency from buying hard currency. So you've got a soft currency store and a hard currency store that now making sure that you don't mix things together and confuse users. I can buy one kind of thing here, I can click on the other one, and I can buy other hard currency items somewhere else. Again, that makes the shopping experience clearer and less confusing. So, what did we learn about how they sell stuff? Well, if you have a bigger selection, you can do a better job of offering the right thing to the right person at the right time, and you'll actually get more orders at a higher price. If you show people how to use stuff in the in-app tutorial, you're actually going to have a 2.5 times better conversion rate. And if you show them how to use what they've purchased, you'll sell 65% more stuff. And for goodness sakes, make it easy to shop and make the value exceptionally clear so you can actually sell more higher priced items. It's amazing how well that works when you do it right. Now, they actually also got more session minutes, and session minutes per day is important too. So what are some of the things that affected the number of session minutes and the number of sessions per day? First one was to get additional sessions per day, lower the barrier of entry for opening and launching your application. I love Flappy Birds. Flappy Birds is super easy to start. You have one tap on the application, it opens, you tap play, and you're in the game. Now, compare this with my previously favorite Connect 4 game. You launch it, and there's this beautiful splash screen. Okay, now you have to tap the splash screen. And then it asks you if you want to play an old game or start a new game. New game. What options do you want? You can be red, you can be black, you can go first, you can go second, you can change the grid size, you have all of these different variables, you can change the background. Oh, for goodness sakes, I want the same ones I chose last time I played this game. I've always chosen the same ones when I play this game. Why aren't you defaulting me to the same ones I always pick? Anyway, 5 or 6 taps later, I finally get to play the game. That's really annoying. That's like 8 taps before I'm actually in and playing the game. That's a barrier to a subsequent session. Most of the time, in at least that Connect 4 game, People are going to use the same options they chose last time. Make the 80% case the default case. Make me do additional taps only if I want to change something, not if I want to do the same thing. And if I've got a game I haven't finished, start me up in the game that I haven't finished yet so I can finish it. If I choose not to finish it or start a new game, then I can go back to the main menu and tap new game. But again, 80% of the time what I'm going to want to do is finish that game. So understand how your users use the app with instrumentation from analytics programs, from doing things that are fairly simple and cheap to do, and then make sure you default to that 80% path. You'll get more sessions per day by making it easier for people. Another thing that makes it easy for people to have multiple sessions per day is acknowledging that more and more of your customers are multiple device customers. And speaking of tower defense games, I'll play a tower defense game on my tablet at home, get to level 14, I come to the supermarket, I take out my phone, and I get to start on level, what, 1? Really? I'm not going to play 14 levels again on my phone. I'm going to start playing Flappy Birds. I'm going to play something else that's easy where I can pick up where I left off. So there are solutions to this problem. All of the game platforms now, or at least all of the big ones like Amazon, Apple, and Google, all have game services that will synchronize your progress between different devices. They're really easy to use, and I recommend you're doing this for productivity tools. Where were you in your workflow when you stopped using your productivity tool? What level were you on when you stopped playing your game? Synchronize that status and the status of the content across devices. It just makes it easy to get multiple sessions. And the more sessions you have, the more exposure you have to in-app purchase opportunities or ad impression revenue. The more session minutes you get. It's fairly simple. Next is tuning the difficulty of achieving a certain workflow. Most of this was done in the context of games, but it's not just a game context. It's also a path to principal outcome. So I'll give you examples from both. In tuning game difficulty, A/B testing is actually a pretty popular tool among the top 50. Again, for a while, Amazon had like the only really good A/B testing API out there, but now there are like 25 different free API testing tools you can use. They're all pretty easy, 12 lines of code, and you can change the text that shows up in a button. As a matter of fact, there's no reason not to do it because it's really kind of fun. You've got 10,000 apps in the wild. You're sitting there at your console, and in the A/B testing console, you can change the text. It'll show up on everyone's button and measure what happens. It's really kind of fun playing with your app in the wild like that. Anyway, go ahead and do that. The top 50 actually tune the difficulty of the games that they write, not to maximize in-app purchase revenue per level, though. What they do is they maximize for next level start. So what they found is that if they change the difficulty so that you have to make a lot of in-app purchases to finish the level, you've turned a game into a pay-to-win game as opposed to a game that offers in-app purchasing. Your customer feels like an ATM machine, they delete the game. They maximize lifetime user value when they maximize next level starts. So if they can change the difficulty so that after you finish the current level, you immediately start the next level, that's when they find that the long-term revenue is maximized. This is also true for utility programs as well. I'm going to go back to my fax example. When you're sending a fax to someone, you need to input your sender's information. You need to put the recipient's information in there. You need to pick the document. You need to choose whether or not you want a return receipt or confirmation or not. You've got a bunch of things you need to do. Do you think it matters in what order you ask for that information? Okay, well, that's a leading question. Obviously, the answer is yes. And so what the top 50 are doing is they're tuning their app so they get the order right. Do you ask for the complicated stuff up first so that everything else is easy? Or do you let people do some of the easy stuff first and then ask for the more complicated stuff a little bit later in the process? Well, they don't guess what's going to work. They A/B test it. They try out a bunch of different ways of doing it, and then they pick the one that actually generates the most repeat fax sends. And the more people send faxes, the more packages of faxes that they purchase from your online store. So again, maximizing for desired behavior completion and doing that with A/B testing is absolutely something that the top 50 do that very few of the rest of us do. Have I made a big point about A/B testing? I'm really going to push that hard as we go. It's a very big difference. Another thing that the top 50 do is they do a lot of stuff with social. And the very minimum bar for social turns out to be leaderboards and achievements. Again, leaderboards and achievements primarily was something driven by the game industry, but it's been used fairly successfully by other utility apps as well. Hey, congratulations, you just sent 5 faxes. You've gained access to a multiple folder structure that you only win access to after you send 5 faxes. And now when you receive more faxes on your phone, you've got this folder structure that you didn't have access to before. So you can get productivity awards, just like you can get achievements for beating bosses in games. High score is pretty game specific, but it's really important. There was this stupid geography game. And I mean, it was simple. Any one of you guys could have written this thing in a long weekend. It basically had a map. It would show you a country and then give you a multiple choice question of what the capital was. I mean, really, that's hello world stuff, right? But I played that thing for a long time. Why? Because my son and I got this app. We played it. And of course, we played it for 5 minutes. I beat him. Not a problem. I travel the world for a living. This is normal, right? I'm at work, and I get this message in my notification tray, your son's beat your high score. Really? I travel the world. He does not beat my high score on this game. I pull out my phone, I play the game for a few minutes, I beat his high score. All is right with the world. I put the phone back, and a little bit later in the day, I get another notification. Yeah, guess what? I don't know if he wasn't at school that day or what he was doing, but okay, I stopped what I was doing. I picked up that stupid game, and I played until I beat his new high score. For a week, this went on until I've got like 20 hours buried, and not really 20 hours, but it was like 8 hours buried in this stupid game just so that I could beat his high score and restore balance to the universe. Now, that's 7 3/4 hours more than this stupid app deserved. But because I'm incapable of letting my son beat me, this stupid achievement feature that, again, it's in all the game platforms, it takes 10 minutes to implement, got another, 5 hours worth of ad impressions that it shouldn't have gotten? Okay, now I'm never going to tell you the name of the app because I think I've called it stupid 3 or 4 times. But trust me, doing that will get additional usage. For those of you who like tower defense games, this is that balloon game I was telling you about. A bunch of balloons show up here. You've got these absolutely adorable monkeys that throw darts at the balloons so that the balloons do not exit the maze here at the bottom. Now, a level takes a few minutes to play, maybe 10 minutes to play a complete level. And if you're 9 minutes into this level and you're almost done, and this huge wave of balloons is going to make it past your last monkey and out of the maze, what do you want to do? You want to click on something so that you can destroy all those balloons. What happens when you do? Well, actually, in this game, you couldn't do anything. Because in order to buy something, you had to quit the level, go back to the main menu, enter a different village. In the village, go to a different hut that could sell you stuff, and then go to a different place in the hut to buy something that would Really? Really? If I'm going to have to go through all of that work and quit the level, well, I'm not going to buy anything at all. I'm just going to put my monkeys in a different place when I start the level over again. I'm not going to buy anything. Well, the good folks at Ninja Kiwi, really bright folks, they learned from this. And so what they did in their next tower defense game was really smart. They have all of the soft currency towers over here. This is basically the same concept of a game, except instead of balloons and monkeys, you've got zombies and machine guns. Zombies and tower defense, I love that combination. So the more zombies you kill, the more soft currency you earn, the more you can put towers in and upgrade the towers. However, when a huge horde of zombies is rushing towards your civilian population, about to infect the last chance that the world has of recovering, you want to give your soldiers a nuclear hand grenade. I'm not sure who thought it was a good idea to give a soldier a nuclear hand grenade, but trust me, when the zombies are at the wall, you take advantage of what you got. So I click on a nuclear hand grenade, and what does it say? Mike, I'm not going to sell you one for 99 cents. I'm going to sell you 3 for 99 cents. And not just that, but here's how you use it. You click on it, you drag it to the horde of zombies, you let go, and then you watch what happens. And then they even gave me a countdown. 3, 2, 1, start. I click on the hand grenade, I drag it to the group of zombies. Boom! Flesh and blood and gore everywhere. But they were all gone. And my people were safe. And actually, that was a pretty cool effect, too. That was so cool that the next level I played, even though I probably didn't need it, I kind of wanted to see what the Apache helicopter did. That was pretty cool, too. Okay, what was the big difference in this game? Because I was able to buy exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. I didn't have to quit the level. I didn't have to do anything. I could just come over here to the right-hand side of the screen and get what I needed when I wanted it with instructions on how to use it. I've spent more money on this game than I ever did on the other game because they made it insanely easy to buy. In the study that we did, when you make it insanely easy to buy, you get 75% more average revenue per paying user. Think about how you make it easy to buy faxes or power-ups or other things in your game. So, what do the top 50 do? They A/B test everything. They put a lot of levers in their game because they don't believe in guessing what's going to work. They believe in knowing what's going to work. And if a dialogue that says buy now is not as effective as a dialogue that says okay, well, they want to make sure that they can change all of that even when their game is in the wild. So they use A/B testing. Absolutely take advantage of A/B testing, which is why when we take a look at what we learned from here, tweak your difficulty or the path to desired action with A/B testing to make sure that that's working. To get more time and more sessions, that's a smart thing to do. Differentiate your IAP catalog so you're offering different things to different users at the right time. Offer the more expensive stuff to your longer term users. And then again, never lose control of what's going on in your app and change things based on the reality of what your users are doing, not what you kind of hope that they're doing. Now, my time is up. I've dumped a whole lot of data on you guys. So if you only remember to do one thing, differentiate your IAP catalog. Recognize that your best customers want to spend more money with you because they think you're that great. Accept the fact that someone loves you that much and they want to spend $49 with you. Give them something to spend $49 on when they've been with your game for 30 days. It's absolutely worth it. All right. Actually, I don't want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember 2 things. Be super clear about the value. Whenever you're making your customer have to do work in order to buy something from you, you're not making it easy for your customer. That includes figuring out percentages or going through 10 clicks to buy something when they really should be able to get what they want right there. Okay, go ahead and take a picture of that slide because that's really the one I want you to remember. That's the biggie right there. If you want a copy of this deck, yeah, that'll be available certainly from Topconf. But all of the discussion and all of the talking points around it are actually available over there on bit.ly top 50 IAP. And that's handy when it comes to kind of interpreting some of those graphs because now you've got my dialogue written down in blog form that goes with that. Please fill out the Topconf survey so that Chris knows whether or not you liked this or not. Also, getting all of this data to you was kind of expensive for Amazon to do. It took a lot of people, a whole lot of churning through big data for that. And we're wondering whether or not we want to spend this kind of time and money to bring this data to you again. So if you go over here to Topconf 2, there's like a 3-question survey. And if you like this data and we want to see more of it, tell us that this is valuable to you. If really you've been sitting here because you're too polite just to get up in the middle and leave, let us know that this is not kind of what you want from Amazon moving forward, and we'll save the money and deliver something else next year. Guys, thank you very much for your time and your kind attention. I will be available outside those doors if you want to follow up and ask any questions. There we go.